Welcome to the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast. There has never been a better time for writers. More information, options, and opportunities are available to you, but navigating these requires insight. Join Mark Leslie Lefebvre as he draws upon more than a quarter century of experience as a writer, a bookseller, and a trusted book industry consultant to explore and reflect on the writing and publishing landscape to help you make informed choices on your writer journey.
I regularly hear the following questions from authors. How do I get someone to discover my new book? How can I find people to review my book? Is there a way for me to increase my visibility and my sales on multiple retail platforms? What sort of support is out there if I can't afford the vast amounts of time that marketing can take? I have a day job after all, and I'm trying to get this writing career on the road. I wish there was a service with a money-back guarantee that if I don't earn money from it, I can still be satisfied. Well, listener, you came to the right place. In episode 8 of Stark Reflections, I talked to Ricci Wolman, founder and CEO of Written Word Media, about all this and more. Ricci has over 10 years of experience building online audiences using data-driven customer acquisition techniques. She holds an MBA from Harvard University, and she's created Written Word Media, which offers such great author-friendly services as Bargainbooksy, Freebooksy, Red Feather Romance, and New in Books. She created this in order to help a budding author who didn't know where to get started once her book was published. It's a wonderful conversation that I'm sure you'll learn a great deal from. I know I learned a lot, and I've already been using their services for a couple years now. After our chat, I'll share some stats from a recent paid promo I did using Written Word Media so that you can kind of get a feel for how that might work for you. Speaking of things that might work for you, this podcast is sponsored by Findaway Voices, which is a self-directed platform that allows authors and small publishers the ability to project manage the creation of an audiobook from a cast of thousands of narrators around the world, to get your audiobooks distributed to retailers and libraries around the world, and to maintain control of the retail price for those audiobooks. Does that sound too good to be true? Sounds amazing to me. You can learn more about Findaway Voices at starkreflections.ca/findaway. And now, let's get on to my chat with Ricci. Hey, Ricci, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Mark. Very happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have a chance to chat with you again, this time recording the conversation for the audience, because I absolutely love what you're doing with Written Word Media. I first want to talk about why you launched Written Word Media and what the various tools are for it.
Absolutely. So Written Word Media was really born out of the experience I had trying to help my mom, who about 7 years ago published a book. It was really a passion project for her. And at the time, I was running a small consulting agency, and I was helping companies navigate online marketing and figuring out how to use online marketing to get customers. And my mom wrote this book. She was not tech savvy at all, and she asked me for some help publishing it. So I got familiar with, at the time, the Kindle Direct platform was fairly new. I went in there, I got the book up for her, and we both sat back waiting for the sales to start pouring in. And that did not happen, even back then when it was a much less crowded marketplace. And so soon after she had published the book, Amazon introduced Kdp Select, and with it, those 5 free promotional days. And being a marketer, I knew that free was the most powerful tool you can have. Mm-hmm. And I figured, hey, let's give it a shot. It was, for my mom, quite painful to think about giving her book away for free. Yeah. But, I talked her through it, and I said, you're not selling any copies now. Let's see if we can use this to kickstart the book. So I set the book to free. And once again, we sat back and we waited for the free downloads to start pouring in. And nothing happened.
Oh.
And that was actually very surprising to me, because here was a book that was free, available for people to download and read, and they were not doing it. And so when I went onto Amazon and I took a look, on that day that her book was free, there were 5,000 other books that were free as well.
Right.
And so the issue of discoverability, of getting your book in front of readers, was true both for free or not free.
Okay.
And so I thought about this. Being a marketer, it kind of kept me up at nights, and I thought, how can I help her solve this problem? And at the time, blogs were pretty big, and Facebook was just in its infancy. So I decided to set up a blog and set up a Facebook page, and I called it Freebooksy. I really named it that for SEO purposes. I wanted free and book to be in the URL, because SEO was a big deal back then. And set up this blog, and every day I would go to Amazon and I would pick 5 free books and I would feature them on the blog.
Okay.
And then I would slowly, drive traffic to them through marketing, which I'll talk about in a minute. And it worked. Just having a small curated selection of free books that readers could look at, then those books started getting clicks, they started getting free downloads. And the same was true for my mom's book, which I would feature once every, month or so give her some visibility. But now I had this blog, I had this Facebook page, and it was really fun for me. And what I started doing is I started using it as my sandbox, which is a technical term, but basically it just means a place where I could experiment for the clients that I had on my consulting side. Because truth be told, back then, nobody knew anything, because everything was new. Right. And so my clients would come to me and say, hey, there's this thing called Pinterest. Should we be on it? Right. What should we be doing with Twitter? Facebook just launched like ads. Is that something we should do? Mm-hmm. And I didn't know. I didn't have anywhere I could look or peers I could talk to, because it was day one for everybody. So what I would do is I would say, okay, Pinterest, let's start a Pinterest, account for Freebooksy. Facebook like ads, let me run them on Freebooksy. And then I would take those findings to my clients so I could sound smart and say, hey, I've tried this on my internal site. It works or it doesn't work.
Right.
And the side effect was that because I was experimenting and playing on the Freebooksy brand, it started to grow a fairly big audience. And all of a sudden, when I picked a book, not only was it getting downloads, but now it was in the top 100 free books on Amazon. Oh. And authors noticed this, actually before I did. They came to me and they said, hey, could I pay you to feature the book on the blog? And that's really how Freebooksy was born, as a deal site or a promo site, as everybody is very familiar with that concept now. We have BookBub is the really big one, and we have the 4 sites that we have: Freebooksy, Bargain Booksy, New In Books, and Red Feather Romance. But at the time, it was kind of a new concept, and I stumbled into it by trying to help my mom.
And it's fascinating that you went in, and of the thousands of books that were available on Amazon for free, you went in and curated and said, well, these are 5 books that I think would be valuable for different readers. And you kept working at that. And then people, because authors are they attend very much to the rankings and downloads. So they probably would have said, what's going on? Why am I getting so many hits? And then they approached you and said, they would like to pay you because this is working. That's when was this approximately?
This was back in, so the Freebooksy site was launched in early 2012, and it probably took about, I would say a year and a half before the audience was big enough that authors started paying me. But the truth was, that wasn't my focus. My consulting business was my focus, and so I hired a part-time student out of UNC. We're down here in North Carolina. Okay. And I had her help me. If authors wrote in, we would look at the book, we'd put it up on the site, we would invoice them through PayPal. It was a highly manual, time-consuming endeavor, and not particularly scalable. Right. And so I did that for a couple years, and it was only in 2014 that I really started to focus on what is now the Written Word Media brand exclusively, and eventually sidelined my consulting business.
Oh, that's neat. So Freebooksy was the first one. Then you introduced Bargain Booksy. So Freebooksy is for free books, obviously. Freebooksy is
for free books. We feature only free books in that newsletter and on the site. Okay. Bargain Booksy is for discounted books under $5. But really, the books that perform there are $2.99 and below, and that's the vast majority of the price points that we
Right.
promote. Red Feather Romance features both free and discounted books, but it's in the steamy contemporary romance genre specifically,
Okay.
because that reader base tends to be highly voracious. They can't get enough books, and so we launched an entire brand just to feed their appetites.
Well, we call them highly active.
Highly active, there you go. And then New in Books is slightly different in that it is not a discount brand. It is not necessarily a price-sensitive audience. Our vision for written word media is that eventually we'll be able to serve every type of reader that's out there.
Right.
And with Freebooksy and Bargainbooksy, we felt like we had the discount-oriented reader and consumer covered, but we didn't really have anything for people who were time-starved but not price sensitive. And so New in Books is covers all formats. The most exciting is audio book, which I'm sure we'll talk about, because audio is kind of the very buzzy at the moment. But there we can move audiobook, paperback, hardcover, and ebook copies, and the audience will buy books that are priced at $12.99 and that are priced at $2.99. So it's slightly different, and the other difference with New in Books is it's more of a full service experience for authors. So authors who don't want to do it all themselves and don't want to have to go and do the promo stacking on different sites, they can come to New in Books, and the book will get coverage across all of our sites. We also do some social media paid advertising around the book. We sometimes run book buy ads for the book. So it's a more expensive package, but it's a more holistic package.
It almost sounds like this is where, so an author's just starting out and they don't know what to do. Where am I going to go? How am I going to get reviews? Because everyone tells me I have to get reviews.
Yes.
New in Books almost seems to be, because it's out there. They maybe don't have an advanced reader base, or they don't have the curated mailing list. So where do they start? That's probably a great opportunity for them, because you guys kind of put a lot of those pieces in place for them. I'm very curious to. We will of course include links to these services, so my listeners can check it out. But sounds fascinating. How's that been working?
It's working well. Just to go back to your review point, reviews are so tough to get, and in the industry that we're in, especially as it's maturing, reviews are becoming pretty critical to be able to get your foot in the door. And so there are many other promo sites or deal sites or advertising opportunities out there, but for the vast majority, you need to have some reviews to begin, because a book with no reviews is just deemed not to have a level of quality that everybody's looking for, readers included. And so we actually find that the most efficient and easiest way to get reviews for an author is to run a Freebooksy feature. And it's because of the volume. When you run a Freebooksy feature, say it's a mystery title, you're going to get 5,000 to 6,000 to 7,000 downloads on that day. You're also, if your book's in Kdp Select, you're going to get a lot of reads coming through in the weeks following.
Okay.
Now, the beautiful thing about running a free promotion is that although the book is free, it's still considered a purchase. So when the book is free and readers go and purchase the book, they do hit that buy button, but the price is $0.
Okay.
So what happens is you now have 6,000 people. Not all of them are going to read the book, but say 10% do.
Okay.
And then another 10% come back and review the book, because Amazon or whichever retailer actually pings them at the end of the book and says, hey, would you like to leave a review?
Right.
Those readers come back, and they within 2 to 3 weeks following your Freebooksy feature, you start seeing these reviews popping up. And on Amazon, they're verified reviews, which is significant because those are more difficult to get. And so whenever I speak to authors and they're like, what's the best and quickest way for me to get reviews? I say, run a Freebooksy feature. Even if you just set your book free for 24 hours, it's not a long time, set it free for 24 hours,
right.
Run it with Freebooksy. You don't have to give away 30,000 copies. You don't have to, run it on 7 different promo sites for free.
Right.
If you have one promo site that can get you in the thousands of downloads,
okay.
You will start seeing those reviews coming in usually days after, and within 2 to 3 weeks, you should have 10 to 15 verified reviews.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It's the most, time efficient way also for you to get reviews versus finding, beta readers and then asking them to review and figuring that
Yes.
all out. And it's a very legitimate way to get reviews, because there's a lot of services out there that promise reviews, but then they might not be legitimate. Amazon lands up taking them down because they look suspicious. And so that's a road that we would try and avoid if possible.
So I just want to clarify, because I'm fascinated by new in books. I mean, I'm quite intimately familiar with Bargain Booksy and Freebooksy, having used them many, many times to great success. But new in books is fascinating because, as an author myself, I'm in the process of getting some of my older or backlist books into new formats like audio. So would I be able to use new in books for the new audio version of a book that may be 2 or 3 years old?
Funny you should ask. So we're actually discussing that at the moment. So currently our policy is, the book really does need to be new. And we're fairly broad in that the book can have come out in the last 6 to 9 months. It doesn't have to be the last 30 or 60 days.
All right.
However, with the advent of what's happening in audiobooks and Google's announcement this week, we are looking at doing potentially an additional email that would go out to the new in books audio audience only, that segment of the list, in which case we'd be highlighting all the books that were new to audio specifically. So when you have your audiobook ready, you'll shoot me an email and you could be one of our first test cases, because one of the challenges with audio is we can't measure the efficacy of our service. Because there's not a lot of visibility even for the author as to how many copies did you sell, or if it's Audible and subscription, how many people redeem credits for it. But as the industry moves hopefully to a model that is very similar to how we sell ebooks, hopefully that visibility comes with it and we could start seeing, how many copies our services are helping to move.
Yeah, it's funny because, I'm traditionally published and self-published, and with my traditional publishing, I get a report once a year mailed to me from my publisher on how I'm doing, whereas with my self-published stuff, I log on to KDP, I log into Kobo, I log into Draft to Digital, and I can see, same day or previous day results. And I think audio is almost closer to traditional publishing in that you don't see the result immediately. There's no live dashboard for that. It's still somewhere between traditional and what we call classic indie publishing. Absolutely.
And for, authors or people like us who are providing services to authors who are so used to having the data at their fingertips, it's very frustrating, and you feel like you're working in the dark a little bit when it comes to audio. So, but, I think the way that all marketing is moving is that it's more data driven and it's more transparent, and audiobooks will get there hopefully sooner rather than later.
Now, you brought up data, and I'm really curious because you've been monitoring the industry, you've been tracking trends, you've been sharing that on the Written Word Media blog, which has been fantastic, great insights for authors. What are some of the stats about the things you're doing for authors, just to impress upon them the audience that you're reaching? And then what are some of the trends that you're most excited about?
Sure. So, most of my job, what I spend most of my time doing every day, is building our reader audience, because for us, the more readers we have, the better it is for our author customers, because their book gets in front of more readers, they can get more sales, they can get even closer to making a living doing what they love to do. So we are closing on 1 million readers across our 4 brands, which we're really excited about. And so, our goal is to hit that milestone hopefully this year, or if not this year, within the next 12 months. The reader base that we're growing it's fairly significant. We try and add 20 to 30,000 new readers every month, because it's about having a big pool of readers, but it's also many authors come back and will feature the same book with us every 2 to 3 months. And in order for them to see results, they need a new pool of readers to reach, because the first time you run a promotion, no one's seen your books. You're going to get thousands of downloads, and we want to make sure when you come back 3 months later and you run it again, that you're going to see the same types of results. And so keeping a fresh pool of people coming in all the time, and then just growing the audience, in aggregate is really my main focus. But we're really excited about that million mark and reaching 1 million readers. We send a lot of emails.
Yeah.
We at last, look, I was just looking at some of these stats last week, we sent over 12 million emails in December.
In December 2017, you spent over 12 million emails.
Yes. Because, on Bargainbooksy and Freebooksy, we're sending an email every day to a fairly large audience. And then we have Red Feather and New In Books, which go, less often than that. But we're sending a lot of emails, and we're getting, a lot smarter about email marketing and how do you make that work. And what other stats could I tell you? Last year alone, we worked with 7,000 authors who actually featured books with us. And that's not counting authors that we worked with editorially or, just chatting or giving advice on our Facebook page,
right.
Or on our blog, or the many conferences that we went to. And so we love working with authors. We have an internal set of values. And our very first value is help the author. And I think a lot of this just stems from my experience. My mom, having been a first-time author, especially when she was doing it, there were a lot of services out there that were trying to take advantage of people,
right.
promising big promises for very large dollar amounts and then delivering nothing. And so we strive to be the absolute opposite of that, and always providing value to authors and really helping make their dreams come true. And so a lot of what we love, and we have a few people who work, I have a small team who work with me, is people writing and they tell us their stories and how they've, quit their job to do writing full time, or, stay-at-home parents whose kids are now in school more, and now in their mornings they're writing and they're starting to contribute to the family because they're earning money from their writing. And there's just some incredible stories out there about what authors have been able to do through indie publishing over the last 10 years.
That is fantastic. Well, on behalf of authors everywhere, I want to thank you for that integrity and that bottom line of being there to help the authors, because it is challenging when authors are starting out. They're trying to figure out, how do I build my audience? How do I get readers? And this is a great resource. Never mind the services you offer, but you even provide free information and content and advice on your website. And again, I want to come back to this because you recently did sort of trends and speculations about the next year. What were some of your favorite takeaways from looking at those industry trends?
Well, audiobooks. I'm really excited about audiobooks. And when we put the trends together, we thought audiobooks, this was going to be a big year for audiobooks. And then just last week we had Google Play coming out, and they now have audiobooks in the store. We're hearing that Apple iBooks, or iBooks which is now going to become Apple Books, will now have audiobooks in Apple Books instead of in iTunes, which makes a lot more sense.
Yes.
We're very curious to see what that model is going to be. Is it going to be in, off the shelf the way Google Play is, or is it going to be subscription? Right. But, and then the author earnings report came out and said the audiobook market's about $430 million, or was for the last 9 months. But that market share is mostly skewed towards traditional publishers. Right. So it's kind of like, if you think about where ebooks were maybe 6 years ago, 7 years ago, that's where audiobooks are today. Yeah. And I just seeing that moving dramatically towards indies, as indies can start to figure out how to produce these audiobooks cost effectively and then distribute them through services like Findaway Voices onto all these different platforms. So I think audiobooks is going to be big, and we're going to be working, like I said, with the New In Books brand and our other brands to figure out how can we help authors start moving audiobooks, how do we get readers to start listening to them so that we can help accelerate that market share. So I would say definitely audiobooks. What else? Let me look at what some of the trends we had. So the author earnings report came out, and one of our trends was that we see indies taking more market share, and we see more indies becoming successful. And I think the report definitely showed that that's happening, and that's where the trend is going. I think on the ebook market, indies have about 25% market share now, right, versus, the big five had about 25%, and Amazon's imprints are moving up to about 10%. Yeah. And there was a list of, authors, a lot of new arrivals that had come on to, all these new successful authors. And and we're seeing it every day. You know, a lot of the authors, whether they be on that list or whether they're not on the list, doesn't make a difference. But we're dealing with authors on a daily basis who are really starting to make a living doing what they're doing, or supplementing income doing what they're doing. And so I do think that trend is going to continue, and that's another trend that, you know, I'm really excited about.
Oh, that's fantastic. So just a couple things. So you've got a small team, very awesome people. All the people that I think I've met 3 or 4 of the people who work written word media. Love you
and
all.
You've probably
You're all
met everybody.
amazing people. Where are people going to be able to catch up with you in person in the next little while? Where are you guys going to be?
Yeah, so we will be, I will be at the Smarter Artists Conference at the end of February.
Okay.
And then we'll probably be at the NINC conference later on this year.
Yep.
And potentially the Book Baby conference, which is it's a new conference, but it's in Philadelphia, which is close by for us. And I went last year and had a good time. So we'll be there, and then probably Romance Writers of America as well.
Oh,
so those are conferences for in person, but we try and make ourselves really accessible. So I'm going to probably be doing more Facebook Live chats this year, so that authors there's a time and a place where you could come in and just ask questions or chat about different topics. And we might do some, follow-ons on some of the articles that we're writing, things like that. But you can always just email us. And I speak to authors by phone a lot, so I do make myself available for that. And our customer service, Chloe, who you've met, she will answer questions via email or jump on the phone as well if authors have questions. And so I can give you that email address and those places to put in the show notes, so people can come and look for us. Yeah,
I mean, I've always been impressed with the personalized service that you get when you reach out to I've only used Bargainbooksy and Freebooksy so far, but that's going to change. I'm going to use more, but I've always been
start writing romance, Mark.
Well, no, I mean, I'm looking at I haven't written any romance yet, but maybe new in books for one of the next releases. But I've always liked that response that you get, and it always seems to be, the attitude seems to be, it seems to be more about how can we work with you, rather than we don't want to work with you, we're too busy. so that's very much appreciated, because oftentimes authors are introverts by themselves, and then they reach out this one time and then they get slapped in the face and then they kind of go back to their corner. So that's a fantastic feeling as an author. Now you transitioned from consulting in general about digital marketing and that, now more specifically on helping authors with books. And your husband Farrell actually ended up leaving his full-time job as well to focus on the business?
Yes. So, and they're actually, we've spoken to many other husband-wife teams where one or the other were authors, and then the spouse quit their job to help with running the author business. And so we have some similarities there. But, as I said, I was running my consulting business, and I was pretty heads down on that. And I was pregnant with my second child, and I was due in April. So in that January, I stopped taking on new clients because I knew I was going to be out for a while with my new baby.
Yeah.
And I had a little bit of time, in those months, January through April, where I could step back because I wasn't, onboarding a whole lot of new clients for consulting, and started looking at the business Freebooksy, and we did have Bargainbooksy at that point, and realized that it was potentially scalable, but not without technology.
Right.
And as luck would have it, my husband is in technology and had been working for a technology startup for the 7 years prior, doing product technology and rollouts and all that stuff. And we'd always talked about working together. We'd always wanted to be able to have flexibility to set our own work-life balance, to spend lots of time with our kids, to enjoy life and not just work all the time. And so we started talking about it and what would that look like. And then my daughter was born, and when she was 4 months old, he quit his job and we decided to go for it. And, at the time, it didn't feel that crazy when we made the decision. It was a big decision, but looking back at the situation, we had like a newborn infant, and, I had my son who was, under 3. And here we were, setting off to try and grow this business. And it definitely was not without its challenges, both
Right.
personally and professionally. But it's been a great decision, and we feel many days that we're just so lucky to be living this dream of, we work together, we live together, we do have flexibility, we are able to set the priorities that we want in our own life. So it's been good.
Oh, that's fantastic. That is wonderful. So I know we're going to have the links in the show notes, but where can people find you guys online, on Facebook, etc.?
Yes, I would say for authors who are just wanting to get to know us and figure out what we offer, go to our main site, which is writtenwordmedia.com. The homepage is actually our blog, because we think the best place to start is just education. And so we have a lot of blog posts just around, like, what is KDP? What is KDP Select? Where can I distribute? What is running a promotion? All those kind of questions that authors might have off the bat. And then from there, it lists our 4 brands, and that's a jumping off point to say, okay, I understand that I should run a Freebooksy, and then it'll push you off to where you can purchase a Freebooksy feature. But again, we do have contact links on that Written Word Media page. You can email us if you have questions. We have a lot of emails, a lot of authors emailing in saying, I understand, I want to run a bargain booksy. This is my book, but I don't know what genre is the right fit. And we're doing this every day. So we can look at your book and we can say, look, your book is going to do better in fantasy than it is in paranormal romance. Or, you're better fit for sci-fi than you are for something else. And so we're happy to help with some of those decisions as well.
That's fantastic. So just one last sort of tidbit or tip for authors out there is, what's one thing that you've noticed that savvy authors are doing that are helping to maximize their marketing expenditures?
So I think savvy authors understand that a marketing expense is made up of both dollars spent and time spent. Okay. And a lot of things that look to be free because they don't cost you out of pocket dollars actually are very expensive in time.
Okay.
And a lot of things that maybe you're paying for save you some time. And so those, and this, I don't want to get too complex, but I think as authors are navigating, what should I be doing with marketing? Every time you're thinking about doing something, you should say, what is this costing me in dollars? What is it costing me in time? And what results do I think I'm going to get? And how confident I am in those results. So, for example, Facebook ads. A lot of authors are doing Facebook ads. Now, Facebook ads is it has a very high time cost, because you got to get educated, you got to set up your ads, you got to monitor your ads every day. It also has a high dollar cost, because you got to spend, even if it's $5 a day, you're actually spending money, and that adds up over time.
Right.
Now, the results can be really great, but your confidence in that, I would say, for most authors is about a 50%, right? Because you're not sure if you're going to get it right or not. So for some authors, definitely worth doing if you've kind of tapped out everything else. But for authors starting out, it might be slightly overwhelming, because it's got high costs on both ends and then variable results. Something like Twitter or Facebook organic, $0 cost, potentially high time cost, results unknown. If you can find Facebook groups or readers who are willing to listen to you and purchase your books, then that's actually somewhere that is worth investing in and probably worth trying, or at least experimenting in for a week or two. Amazon ads, lower time than Facebook ads, has some cost, but lower cost. Results, actually high confidence, because if you can get those right, we know a lot of authors who are actually starting to make money there. So that might be something that you want to do. So I guess what it comes down to is savvy authors are looking at all the things that are out there and evaluating what is the time cost, what is the dollar cost, and what kind of results can I expect. And promo sites, deal sites like ours, like BookBub, there are a bunch of others out there that have really good quality. The dollar cost it's there, but it's generally low, not BookBub, but the others are generally, you're looking at under $100. Time cost is almost zero, because you come in, you book your promo, and you're done. And then the results are fairly guaranteed. And if they're not, you should be getting your money back. We stand behind our product. If you run a promo with us and you don't see any sales, we're refunding you. And so it's about looking at all the different marketing activities that you're doing and figuring out what is it actually costing you, what results are you going to see, and how best can you optimize both your time and the budget that you have. And some people are going to be really time rich and some people are going to be really dollar rich. It's going to differ from author to author. So I can't say, hey, every author should do X, Y, and Z. But exactly. You might be an author who has a lot of money and you're willing to pay people to do the marketing for you. Or you might be an author who has a lot of time and you enjoy the experimentation of doing some of the organic stuff. So, but I do think having a framework and understanding how you're deciding where to spend your time, your money, your energy, your passion is the first step every author should be doing when they're looking at their marketing strategy.
Spoken like a professional consultant who really understands the intricacies of a smart business. Thank you so much for sharing your time and expertise with us today on the podcast, Ricci.
Oh, it's been so lovely to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me, Mark.
There's so much value to take away with all of the great information that Ricci shared. I've listened to it 3 times already, and I still get more information from it. So I encourage you to go back and listen again. But I wanted to share my own recent experience with using written word media's tools. Now, I've used Bargainbooksy and I've used Freebooksy. I'm going to get into Freebooksy and an experiment that I did. Now, to go back in time a little bit, I am an author who publishes wide, and I strongly believe that authors should be on all platforms. But the example I'm going to use now is a number of small books that I have put into the Kindle Direct Publishing Select program, which means it's exclusive to Amazon for a 90-day period. And I'm doing that because it's important for me to properly understand the landscape, and therefore I have to test the waters and see what other authors are doing so I can properly understand how it works and or doesn't work. So in this particular case, I'm going to be talking about a title that is currently only available on Amazon. That won't always be the case, but at the time it was. So it's a 4-book series. They're basically 4 books that are about 15 to 18,000 words each. They're all short collections of horror stories. And I made the first one available temporarily free, and I booked a horror Freebooksy promotion on Valentine's Day, February 14th, and it cost me $40 US. So it went live there, and I'm going to outline what I got for my $40. Well, first things first, the whole point of doing the free promo was to try to get some traction for this series, these little chapbooks or booklets. And I got exactly that. I got just under 1,500 downloads in the first 24 hours for that title. And through Kindle Unlimited, which are people who are finding out about the book who can read for free because they're in Kindle Direct Publishing Select. They're part of the Kindle Unlimited program, which is there are people who subscribe to that who can read as many books as they want, and you eventually get paid some sort of amount of money based on combination of dollars available and page reads. I'm not going to get into it in detail, but I got an additional little over 1,500 page reads from the Kindle Unlimited program on the titles in that series, again because they got that attention. Speaking of attention, I managed to hit the number 1 and number 2 categories for horror short stories, etc., which was, always it's more of an ego boost than anything, but ranking high does help feed the algorithm, so I got that. And I ended up getting 2 reviews for this book that hadn't had any. So I went from 0 to 2 reviews, which is fantastic. Even getting a single review is way better than not having any review. So I've got that for the attention, for the downloads, etc., which is just an attempt to get some traction. I'm already satisfied. I already believe I got more than my money's worth there. But let's look at the actual sales I ended up making that I believe can be attributed directly to this promo because I wasn't doing any other promo activities at the time. Now, in the sales of the first week of books 1 through 4 in that series, I made $23.07. Okay, so I made a little more than half of what I invested back. But then I also had sales of a few other, and I didn't count all of the books that I have available for sale, but just the books that would be very specifically targeted to the same audience, the horror readers. So for my horror titles, and again, just looking at the day of and the day after the promo, I made another $11.14. So I made $34.21 if I did the math correctly, something like that. Let's say I made about $34 on that. Cost me $40. I made $34 back almost immediately. I got 2 reviews. I got 1,500 new potential readers into the funnel. Now, I know not everyone's going to pick that up, but even a small percentage of people have obviously already picked it up, and 2 people have already reviewed it. And I made back almost as much money as I spent. I'm completely satisfied. I would have been willing, just for the attention and just for the reviews, I would have been willing to pay that amount. So as a customer of Written Word Media and Freebooksy, you can guarantee that I'm going to take advantage of these services again. And I know that the next one I do, like previous ones I've done in the past, are going to not only link to Amazon, they're going to link to Kobo, to iBooks, to Nook, etc. And that's going to expand it because, when it's available in more places, there's a chance of earning even more money. So that's my own personal experience using Written Word Media, Bargain Booksy, Freebooksy. You should know, and Ricky mentioned this in the interview, that if you're not satisfied with the results, they will offer you a refund. And that's absolutely fantastic. So had I not been satisfied, they would have offered me a refund on that. And that's kind of a cool thing to see. So I want authors to understand that a promotion doesn't have to cost hundreds or thousands of dollars. It can cost tens of dollars. And a promotion doesn't have to return you tens of thousands of dollars either. You can actually spend a little bit of money, get a little bit of traction, get a little bit of sales, and basically help rank yourself up just a little bit. And that is something to celebrate. I hope you found some value in episode 8 of the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast. Again, this is your host, Mark Leslie Lefebvre. Thanks for joining me in episode 8, and I look forward to catching you again next week in episode 9. Shortly after getting this podcast into the feed, I'm going to be getting on a plane and heading to the West Coast, where I'll be joining Dean Wesley Smith and Christine Catherine Rush for the Fiction River Anthology Workshops. This is a series of anthologies published by WMG Publishing, which is a publishing company that Chris and Dean co-manage and co-own. And I'm one of the editors for this anthology workshop. So while I am there, if you're curious to check out any of the live Facebook videos that I may be doing with Dean and Chris and some of the other amazing and talented editors and writers I'll be hanging out with for 10 whole days, you can check out at Stark Publishing Solutions, which is the Stark Publishing Facebook page. If you want to catch me on social media, you can find me at Mark Leslie on Twitter. It's probably one of the best places. Other than that, thanks so much for joining me today, and we'll catch you in episode 9 next week.
Thank you for listening to the Stark Reflections podcast. You can find show notes for each episode at starkreflections.ca.
The music for this podcast, Laser Groove, was composed and produced by Kevin MacLeod. Check out more of Kevin's great music at incomptech.com.